Make sure I have the right stuff set. Oops. Camera, riser, audio codec. Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of
Not Fighting.
I'm Tyler Bishop and this is Jena Bishop. Hello everyone.
Yep.
Again, second hello.
That's so... Oh
no.
My spit. Sorry.
We kicked this one off the right way.
I don't have coronavirus, I promise, guys.
I mean, I feel like if you the people that are like, I don't have it, it's like those are the people that I'm like, ugh.
But happy Easter.
It is Easter when we're
topics.
recording this. It is not going to be Easter when this is released.
Yeah, it's, Easter at home, quarantined. So it's new for all of us. It's kind of weird not being able to gather with your family and friends and celebrate or go to church like normal. We had to watch online like we've been doing every week, but it's just weird. Feels weird for Easter.
I feel like if you were to go look for Easter eggs, like there's no thing that would be more socially frowned upon right now than like going and finding something that someone else has touched. Like specifically trying to find.
I've seen a lot of people, parents that did like their own Easter egg hunts for their kids, like in their own yard, and I'm really happy to see that because, it's just nice to keep some kind of tradition, celebration going.
Yeah, I think that when you look at, like we'll go back in time and probably look at this period, and there'll be like so many weird things that like, I don't know, maybe new traditions even that come out of it because people are like stuck at home now doing all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know. I feel like people are getting weird in their houses.
I'm sure that they are. I really don't want to know just what people are doing, honestly.
I mean, I'm recording this podcast and I don't have any pants on.
Yes, you do. We have a clear table.
The audience doesn't know if I got pants on or not.
Most of the time he doesn't.
I don't wear pants a lot, but
just in the house we're talking about.
These are just facts and unrelated to what we're going to talk about today, which is a debate that I think has been going on for a really long time.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird. I don't really understand it.
I mean, I don't get why that this is a thing, but I mean, I've seen people get kind of passionate about it and it doesn't make sense to me, but
so I think we're going to bring a very rational approach to the question of,
is Jiu Jitsu a fight?
And is it a fight? And I don't know. To me, it's really clear. And you and I, we agree on this. The show is called Not Fighting because we're not fighting. This is definitely not something we're gonna argue about. And it's that jiu-jitsu is it's a fight. Like that's what you're doing. You're fighting.
You're fighting with people like the whole time. Like the whole time you're training, every time you're competing, I would consider it a fight.
Yeah, and I think that like if you look at it in terms of, well, no, like MMA or boxing, like that's a real fight because you're hitting people. Like, is that the criteria for a fight? Is that you have to like hit somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what we should, look up. Like, what is your criteria for a fight? And maybe everybody has different things. Like, you can describe an argument as a fight, or if we were disagreeing on something, people would say, oh, they're fighting about that or whatever. So you can use this term to describe a lot of different things. But I think when we're talking about like the physical aspect of it, I mean, what you're doing in jiu-jitsu is a fight. I don't think that things have to be necessarily overly violent or you have to throw strikes. Isn't that the whole purpose of jiu-jitsu, is to be able to control and subdue your opponent without like having to cause too much harm or damage to them?
And I think one of the things we brought up, like when we were thinking through this, is like, does there need to be ill will towards someone for it to be like a fight? And I think the answer is no. Like you think about
I think that there are a lot of competitions where you would see ill will between two people. There's plenty of people that don't like each other that have to compete in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and I think like if you look at like this is going over into MMA, which there's people that argue MMA is not a fight, but like there's people that when they compete, it doesn't matter what it is, they need to hate their opponent. They need to they need to almost build ill will.
But it's like a fake hate, it's like you have to like convince yourself that you don't like this person, which is funny because like I've always told you, I actually feel like I fight better when I like the people.
Yeah, no, and I think that's
when I have more
thing.
Respect for them.
I think that there's like another gentleman that we know that like he's the friendliest guy on the planet, and he competes better like whenever he's just kind of like loose and friendly and like making friends with everybody. He definitely doesn't fight that way, but like I think there's just different mentalities. People put themselves in different types of mindsets for this sort of thing. When you think about like ill will, though, it's like, when you think about getting in a fight with like a sibling or something like that, or even just like a friend, it's like for guys, I would say more so than girls. Like sometimes after you fight, like that's when you actually like. That's when you're like, all right, we're cool.
Yeah.
Like
it's like how you resolve like an argument or a problem with people. And I think, girls don't always do that way. We're a little bit more verbal or manipulative. I think girls can be which can be more evil, I think, in a lot of ways. Sometimes just duking it out and getting over it might be actually less, traumatic event.
I think that's true, and I think that that's like one of the things that like fighting can fix sometimes is like you talk whether it's an argument or it's like a physical altercation, like sometimes like that's how you basically like solve the issue. It's like you kind of like get out whatever tension is there, and then from there you kind of just are like, well, now we're just left with, we still have this problem, like now we actually have to solve it. And like they always say like fighting's not the answer or whatever. Like there's this quote, and I'm not sure who it's from. It might be like one of those quotes where it's like unknown. I hate those, by the way. It's like, who said that? Oh, unknown said that. It's like, great. Well, like might be a psychopath. But it's that fighting is usually not the answer, and when it is, it's the only answer. And I think that's really true from the standpoint of like if you're in a situation with another person wherever like you have some kind of problem and that problem can only be solved by fighting, usually fighting is the only solution. That usually means it's like for your life. And you brought something up when you're talking about before, is like the purest form of jiu-jitsu is really self-defense, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, that's what we're doing is defending, like learning how to defend ourselves. If like we're really thinking about it, it's using that like is I guess what the martial arts started as. And I think it's like, well, what am I defending myself? Like in what scenario am I going to be defending myself? It's like when you're in a fight, like whether it be a street altercation, like something like you get into a fight with another person or somebody's attacking you, it's like you're fighting. And you're using jiu-jitsu to defend yourself in that scenario. It's like, I'm using that to fight.
Yeah.
It's a fight.
And I think, like we were talking about like schoolyard rules, like rules being this thing that like,
oh yeah,
people get bent
Everybody
out
like wants to say, it's like, oh, well, it's like you have rules, so it's not a fight. Well, it's like, it's funny because you said like people talking about like like some people will say MMA is not a fight. It's like I feel like I've never heard that said about boxing, and they say MMA is not a fight because there's rules. And it's like, but boxing there's rules too. There's probably less damage or less that you can actually do in a boxing match.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Than jiu-jitsu, so I think, or than an MMA fight. So it's just like, how is that a fight?
Honestly, even than jiu-jitsu, you think about like the rules in boxing,
and everything's called fight night and all this kind of things. It's like it's a fight because there's two people that are using like their physicality to determine like who's superior.
But earlier when we were talking about this, you brought something up that I thought was really smart, and that was basically like, even if you like look at like a street fight or whatever, like any fight that's like determined ahead of time that's gonna happen has rules. Like even like a schoolyard fight. Like
you could be like in elementary school and you're like, okay, 3:00, meet me on the playground, it's going down, and then you're like, well, like don't hit my face because like I don't want my mom to find out.
It's like we can't fight in the mud because then I'm gonna get my new jacket dirty. So like we just have to fight on the pavement. Like,
so you might agree to rules before a street fight too. That might happen. Or like, you know, I think one of the biggest things like for street fights, if you're a woman, like, or woman, you know, like you can't fight with earrings in. Okay. So every time you're about to get in a street fight, them earrings come out. Guess what? In a jiu-jitsu match, I have to take all my jewelry out too. It's a fight.
And I think too, like you think about like unwritten rules where it's like, let's say you're in a fight with like a dude, like, and let's pretend it's not like a home invasion or something where you're fighting for your life.
Yeah.
But it's like you just get in a fight with some guy. It's like you don't immediately just try to punch him in the balls. Like you're like, well, it's like an unwritten rule. You don't. Really
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, and I feel like most of the time too, it's like you're not gonna do this kind of like if it's the street fights, it's like you're not like gouging somebody in the eyes and like fish hooking them. Some of the same rules you'd have like in an MMA or jiu-jitsu thing, like things are illegal. It's like that's just kind of like, bro, come on, like, you know, because it's just like we're fighting for whatever reason, unless it's somebody attacking you. That's different, right?
And I think one of the things that is interesting about this is, because in jiu-jitsu, like what you're essentially doing is you're practicing self-defense, like you're, you know, trying to defend yourself. Even in a jiu-jitsu tournament, it's a simulation of like, you know, like what it would be like to grapple with somebody else that's like skilled in grappling. And we were talking about this where it's like, well, are you fighting then, or are you practicing fighting, right? Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, you're still fighting. Like when you're sparring with each other, it's still the same. I'm not practicing that. Maybe I'm practicing for competition or I'm practicing for other things, but you're not, I don't know.
You wouldn't look at me and you like grappling and be like, oh, look, they're practicing against each other. They're fighting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about this with like we were talking about kids specifically, because it's like, well, kids matches, are they fights?
Are they fights?
And I think one of the things that stems from there is like, if you have a kid and he's playing football, you don't look out at the kid that's like on the football team and say during practice like, oh, he's practicing football. You say, no, he's playing football.
He's playing, yeah. Look. Yeah, I bet you would say that they're practicing football.
That's what they're physically doing, but you're like, say, in a macro version of like, why are they practicing football? Well, he's a football player.
It's true. Am I a jiu-jitsu player?
I hate that.
That sounds weird.
I don't like that.
No.
It makes it sound like you're playing a video game.
Like, I don't care if you call jiu-jitsu, like what you call a fight at all, but don't call me a jiu-jitsu player.
Yeah.
That's
like,
weird.
I think of like player one or something like that. Like, I'm just this like, I don't know. Jiu-jitsu is not a game. Like, you can definitely get hurt doing jiu-jitsu. And this is one of the things we talked about. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Does a fight have to be violent to be something that's like a fight? Like, is fighting violent? Like, to me, that's like one of those like logical arguments. It's like fighting can be violent, but violence isn't always fighting, if that makes sense.
I mean, I guess.
Well, like you think about like a MMA fight where you have someone like Damian Maia. Damian Maia might not ever hit you, and you might not ever hit him, but that fight might be over. And I don't know that you could describe it as violent, but he's going to end that fight.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you can have a grappling match.
They can be really violent.
Extremely violent.
How many photos are like iconic out there that have like guys like bandaged up heads and, you know, bleeding noses or bleeding from other things, because it's like, and it's like that doesn't even mean that there was ill will involved in that. It's like, you know, I've watched people in just training, practicing, get knocked unconscious, get their teeth knocked out, those kinds of things that are very violent acts, but it's like it wasn't there was no ill will in that either, and it was very violent.
Yeah, and I would say
it's just fighting. It happens.
There's no ill will in my hands or my ears, but the reason why my ears and my hands are like not normal is because of violence, right? But not necessarily ill will, not necessarily like, you know.
Yeah, like the only time I've ever had like
too, you know?
The only time I've ever had like cauliflower, which my ears are great. I don't know if you can see; they're beautiful here. But the only time I've ever had like a little bit of it is because like from practicing that I was and it's like that wasn't, I mean, it was like somebody was violently trying to like triangle choke me, or even just practicing how to violently triangle choke me, and I'm escaping, and like that's when my ears get folded up. That's where the cauliflower comes from with me. But some of the grip stripping too is like damaging on your hands. That's like that's violent.
It is violent, like violent grip stripping.
Yeah.
And so I don't think violence is like key to it being called a fight, but I will say that like there's something different about martial arts in general, where like there's like the literary sense of fighting. It's where like we're fighting for grips, they're fighting for the line of scrimmage, like
we're fighting for position, we're fighting for control of the company, you know, like there's this like sense that it's like this fighting, but then there's like the act, which is like a different thing. And I would say that like fighting definitely, and fighting in this case being like all forms of martial arts, combat sports, like is different, because in a football game, whenever you walk off the field, somebody was like, they were playing a game, like during the game, or like during the play, or during the match, or whatever it is. When you walk off the mats from fighting, if you're like, did Jerry go yet? You're like, nah, Jerry went while you were fighting. Like that's what you were doing. That's like what we're discussing. Is that okay to say that? But people are doing that.
Like what else were you doing?
Yeah.
You were grappling?
Yeah, but what's grappling?
Like this is now, so to me this is like where the devil's advocate comes into our position, and it's like wrestling. Like, is wrestling a fight?
Well, I guess you could call that a fight too. Like, I mean, you're using, as like we were talking about, that's like, it's like, okay, well, people consider mixed martial arts a fight, but what is mixed martial arts? It encompasses
Our dog just walked between the camera and just slightly moved it, and I think just like to spite us.
Yeah, he gets jealous when we're not giving him our full attention.
Yeah.
But like in all of those things, it's like you're using Jiu Jitsu, wrestling, judo, striking, like, you know, your Muay Thai, your boxing, all these things to put together to use in a fight. So it's like if it's part of the fight, because that can be argued even in a street fight. It's like if somebody can use their wrestling in a street fight to control the person and not get injured, right? And so I think that's kind of where I come from. It's like I think it all can be called a fight.
Yeah.
Or fighting.
I would say the difference with wrestling to me is I don't necessarily consider wrestling a martial art. I consider it like an incomplete one, because there's nothing in wrestling that really, like, can you suplex somebody and can you knock them unconscious? Could you kill somebody? Yeah, like you hit their head on the pavement, of course, you know? Like, could you kill, like, people have died playing football back in the leather helmet days and stuff like that. Like, to me, those are a consequence of like a riskier sport, not necessarily a consequence of like the act of something.
Yeah.
In jiu-jitsu, like, if you wanted to, the end game, you can kill someone. Like, you could just choke somebody till they were dead.
Sure, that's true.
And so to me,
can I just point out, because this is like sidebar, but like it bothers me so much in like any kind of TV, like movie, whatever, when they like do a rear naked choke on somebody, they hold it for like 20 seconds. The person like obviously just like goes unconscious, and then they're like, that he did. Like,
or best case scenario, it's like you don't count on that character like being back in the storyline for hours.
Yeah, it's like they pretend like it puts them asleep for, I don't know, 30
like
minutes.
They actually just like
We've
go to
all
bed
been
for the
there.
night.
We've all seen people get choked unconscious, and it can be like some people convulse and some people are just chill, but it's like within a matter of like seconds, they're awake again, conscious. So just be better, movies. Be better.
I know. Like, even the good movies that, like, actually use jiu-jitsu and stuff like that.
I will say, we just watched a movie, Devs, or a TV show, Devs. We were watching it. And the guy was, like, counting. Like, he was holding somebody and choking them. And he was, like, counting, like, how long they were out after they were out. Because I guess there's probably a specific number of, like, how long you can, like, not have oxygen to your brain before you die.
Yeah, but I feel like whatever that number is, that guy like didn't count long enough.
Remember how somebody asked that question?
Yeah, we were in a class once where somebody asked that question.
Yeah, like how long before you die?
I don't know.
Why are you worrying about that, bro?
I'm not
just
a
let go if they go out.
Let's find out. Come here.
Okay, I got off topic. I'm sorry, but I had to just point that out because
No, I
it
think
always bothers me.
It bothers me too. Because
Yeah.
even movies where they're like, oh yeah, Keanu Reeves trained jiu-jitsu, blah, 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 this and that. And then like you watch the movie and it's like he's doing arm bars and then like breaks the guy's arm. And then the guy's like, and his arm's like all inverted and whatever. It's like, that's not how arm bars work.
No. Like most of the time, you can pretty much just get back to it pretty quickly. Your arm will be hurting, but you can still fight.
And you brought something up whenever we were going over this, and neither of us are native Portuguese speakers by any stretch. But
Obviously.
the terms that the terms in Portuguese for like fighting are like lute or luch.
Whatever. He doesn't know. Like, we don't know how to say it. Or like when you start it. Yeah.
It could start a match is combat.
Yeah. It's like those are like fighting terms.
No, well, loot means fight, right? And like if that's what you do in jiu-jitsu, it's like it's loot.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what they yell at you too. Like if you're stalling, they're like luch.
Yeah. They tell you fight. Like, come on, get the
They
fight.
don't say like play harder. Like, I don't know how you would say
Match
that.
it up. Match it up.
Play pohada. like more play with like more intensity. So I don't know. I think the thing is like
That was
I think
Tyler and Jenna's Portuguese lesson of the day.
Portuguese lesson of the day.
And it's all wrong.
They're like, what? I don't even know the
I
word
don't know.
they say.
What are you talking
Which
about?
Pet peeve of mine is whenever you say like a Portuguese word and then like the Brazilians like act like they can't understand you at all. Where you're like, there's a T in Brazil and it's Mataleo T, Mataleo, wow, Mataleo T, and it's like lion kill T. And I'm like, I saw it. My roommate was Brazilian in college, and I saw it and I was like, oh, I know what that means. And I told him, and I was like, it's Mataleo. And he's like, no, you say it weird. Like, how are you saying? You're not saying it right. And I was like, Machaleo. And he's like, no, you don't have it right. It's
I gotta get a toy for him.
Mataleo. And I'm like, I keep trying to say it, and he's like, no, you finally got it, Machaleo. And I'm like, I was saying the ch sound. Do you not hear the ch when you say it? But yeah, I mean, again,
Sorry, I was trying to make sure that Cash would stop chewing on me.
Cash is our dog, by the way. I think it's come up in other episodes. It's a recurring theme. It's a thing that we have on the show. You guys like the things.
Everybody loves Cash.
So I mean, I think in general, like outside of our Portuguese lessons, I think people get really hung up on the idea of like why I call it fighting and stuff. I mean, back in the day, MMA went from no rules to NHB, which was like no holds barred, and then it became mixed martial arts, and it's because it added more and more rules. We talked about like rules being a thing, but I think that there's a certain amount of like, you know, bravery or like fighting is somehow connected with like war and just like that. Just the seriousness of it, really. And I think that that's part of it.
Yeah. I think like there's this respect, this honor, this like, this legacy of martial arts. So it's like there's this certain like the spirit of the martial artist or whatever. But I would say like, I don't know actually what I'd say about that. I have like mixed feelings.
I think it
that
comes
whole
back,
thought.
You know, you and I just talked about it. It's like it comes back to context. It's like, what is it that you're trying to say when you're talking about it? Like, it's definitely fighting, but are you using this in the wrong context? Are you like trying to make it something that it's not?
Yeah.
Or it's like, jiu-jitsu match might be a fight, but at the same time, like if you come back home and you told everybody like I just got in a fight, like they're not gonna think you were in a jiu-jitsu match. Like they're not gonna think it's this controlled thing.
But like got in a fight or had a fight are two different things. It's like kind of semantics, right? Which is this whole this whole thing is about just like it's semantics, right? And
I think that's the thing too is like what person on the planet can be like, oh, I had like so you might hear somebody say like how many like you got a tournament this weekend? How big's your division? You're like 3 fights to win. That might be something somebody says. But if somebody then asks you like after the fact, like what'd you do this week? And you'd be like, oh, I had 3 jiu-jitsu fights. You'd be like, fights?
You wouldn't be that weird, but nobody would phrase it that way. You would just.
That's what I'm saying.
That would just be weird.
I think that a lot of this comes from basically people trying to be ingenuine about what it is that they're trying to do.
Which there's a lot of that in jiu-jitsu, and maybe that's our next topic about like pet peeves about the falsifying of accomplishments or just that accomplishments is a great thing to put, because I feel like that happens so much.
Anyways,
it's a huge pet peeve.
I think we've rested this topic. We've landed where we're going to land.
We have.
If you have an argument that you feel like counterpoint is a good counterpoint to what we just talked about,
please let us know.
Call into our voice line. We'll have the number like right around here or something like.
Or here or here.
How am I over there? That's where I'm going to put it. Anyways, we're going to put the number up. You can call into the voicemail line, leave your argument. We'll play it on the show in the next episode.
Let us know.
And we'll tell you why you're wrong. And
we would love to tell you why you're wrong.
And if you think that there are really great examples of people that have false accomplishments in jiu-jitsu, or are good examples of like common ways that
and you guys don't have to call out certain specific people, just the type of person.
Yo, my bro Aaron, like this guy pretends like he's a black belt, but I just want to let everybody know right now,
I don't care.
Every time I fight with that guy.
Oh, that happens all the time.
We want to thank you guys for joining us again.
Thank you so much.
So we're a couple episodes in now. If you haven't had a chance yet, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Add us to whatever playlist or podcast service that you use, and leave us a review. Those things are really helpful. They continue to help us grow, like all the different algorithms for all the different systems out there, like built into that stuff. We want to record more episodes and hopefully just like make the show better, bring on different guests whenever we're allowed to see people again. And
I think that's about it.
Thanks for listening or watching or having on in the background, or like using it to put your dogs to sleep, or
just thanks, guys.
Thanks.